Hey guys, so I am shooting a recap here of a dyno tuning session I did for Mike Serrano down at Pottstown Streetcars. I did his square body pickup truck with a turbo, I keep saying turbo, a supercharged LS in it. It's running a F1A Supercharger on it. Pretty nice setup he's got going on. I came in to make some adjustment for him and kind of ended up, making some pretty substantial gains. Basically, based off the original tune that was on it, it was making like I think it was like 660, something around there, 665. When I left, it was making 705 with a little bit of belt slip, and then I ended up making just shy of 740 with it once we got the belt slip situation figured out. I'm going to try something new here. I'm basically going to use the VCM scanner on my laptop and do a screen record, kind of walk you guys through some of the stuff that I saw when I initially got his truck up and running on the dyno, how I use that for diagnostics, and then also what to do with that information and some of the stuff I added in. We can kind of just go from there. I'll kind of go over it as we get it all on the computer. I guess Freeman wants to be in the video today too. Kind of as we go forward, I'm going to keep trying to add some of this information in with the VCM scanner and also VCM editor, show you guys some of the areas to look for stuff and what to change, and kind of give you a little bit more information on what I do as far as the tuning side of stuff goes. Alright guys, so I have the original dyno run I did with Mike's truck up here. This is the first pull I did. Usually if it's something that's already tuned, which this was tuned by another tuner previous to me, in this scenario I'll usually run car, truck, whatever it is, on the dyno, see what it puts out, and kind of go from there, pick up any issues that I see, stuff like that. So first thing we're going to look at here is just the initial run, and I'll kind of point out what I see in it, and we'll go from there. So I usually start something like this out, go in here as an auto trans, so I'll lock it in third, and I'll apply the torque converter clutch so we don't have a torque flare. Air fuel ratio on tip in at 100% throttle, 3100 RPMs. We got about 4 pounds of boost. This is what you're going to want to look at for boost gauge. Figure the atmospheric pressure that day was 14.8. So we're looking at about 5 pounds, almost there. And then I have the HP tuners log and the air fuel ratio here. I'm not exactly happy with the way that this comes out with the line graph. I tried to do some filtering with it to smooth it out a little bit, and it's still kind of all over the place. But it's just like, it's kind of a sporadic back and forth. It's not like it's off, it's just that there's a lot of sampling at one spot. I don't really know if I'm missing something there with smoothing it out. Normally, before when I was at Carl's, I used to log everything with the dyno, and it was pretty smooth throughout through all that. Now that his place is closed up, I'm kind of moving around a little bit, doing some stuff. So with this situation, we're looking at some pretty rich fueling where, right going in the throttle. 11.7 is a little bit more than it needs. It'd be happier up in the 12.5 area. It'd definitely help with picking up torque. I'm also looking at the timing here, which is really low. 4 pounds of boost, it could run, up in the 20s. You can see our ECT is good. IAT is a little high, but it's still okay. And then the other one I wanted to kind of look at is the cylinder air mass, and keep an eye on, this is the manifold absolute pressure. So these two are going to tell us where we're going at in our maps. So as we run through, basically, you know, we come into full boost at 5,000 RPMs. We make 24.3 on the atmospheric pressure gauge. The issue here that you're going to see as I scroll forward is that gauge falls back down to about 21, 20, right in that range. And the reason being is a belt was slipping on the Supercharger. This has an F1A charger. If you're familiar with them at all, they are pretty power hungry. It's only running a 6-rib belt, so it just, you know, it's not exactly the best. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves here, let's look at the fuel a little bit. You know, so as we come into the higher boost area, you know, we're at 24 pounds. You know, you can see we're pretty rich here. You know, 4,800, we're at 10.8. At 5,000, we're at 11.1. 11. Well, yeah, it kind of goes all over the place, but you know, it's safe to say this thing is about 11.0. You know, based if you kind of average that area out there. So my issue here becomes, first things first, when I looked at Mike's tune here, this thing's definitely got the potential to make quite a bit more power. Also, full boost, 17 degrees of timing, pretty damn good. You know, I'm not going to complain about that. Have I run more on that amount of boost? Sure. Have I run less? Yeah, I have, in the situation where something needs it. On this, it's got, you know, a decent amount of compression to it. From what I can guess by looking at the cylinders with a borescope in the top of the piston, it does have a dome piston on it, so it's probably about 10.5 to 1, considering the heads and the cylinder head gasket and everything that's on there. From my engine building experience with doing these, I have one that's kind of a similar build to this, and it's right at like 10.5 to 1. So I'm not too upset with this. Now, what I'm going to switch over and show here real fast is the difference, what I noticed right out of the box with the tune. Now, this is the factory, or the tune that was in it from whoever tuned it before me. And the first thing I noticed was that the fueling scale was off. This has 60 PSI or 60 pound injectors in it. They're scaled at 50. That changed things quite a bit. Here you can see I changed it over to 60 table. So we have it at 50. Changed that around. Now what that ended up doing for us, the big problem this had is it didn't idle worth a crap. It was really rich. The plugs that were in it has BR7 EFs in it, and for whatever reason on this setup it seemed like it wanted to be a little bit leaner idle than what I would normally see, so it's happy around 14.5. So idling, this thing sits about right here. You know, like this is like pretty much almost getting ready to stall when it goes up here, but for the most part it was about basically right in this area. This little block is where it would sit. So with changing that fuel scaler, what it does is it pulls the fuel back, going from 50 to 60. And if you look at it, we stayed pretty much the same with our numbers and got it to where it was idling right. The other thing that I kind of looked at once this was going is you take a look at the once it goes into closed loop, you'll see what the short-term fuel trims are doing and the long-term fuel trims. This thing was basically staying right. See these two little white lines? It was staying right in there once it was running up to speed where it belongs. This is actually the other tune that we're looking at right here. That's my final dyno pull with it. But let's go back to this one here. And you can see kind of how the lines are kind of all over the place because of where they were. I'm not too worried about long-term and short-term fuel trims too much on something of this level build, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. It helps a lot with drivability and such. So next thing we're going to look at here is what I did with the timing. And like I said, I don't want to get too far into it. This is about the third time I'm recording this. Basically, I got a little probably too in depth with some of this stuff. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and make a boring, 40-minute video of me telling you guys how to use HP tuners. and also how to do some tuning stuff. So this is a table that was in it for timing. Pretty basic stuff. I see this type of tuning all the time. I don't agree with it. I have flamed guys online for it. I've done all kinds of stuff, and maybe I should keep my mouth shut about it, but it drives me nuts. This thing, I just showed you, it's making, at 5,000 RPMs is where it's making its peak boost. So we're looking at this block right here is what we're looking at. Well, really from 48 to 52. So this area right here is what we're looking at for timing at peak boost. Everything below here is is low boost. So even like looking at 4,000 RPMs, we're basically going to be sitting in this area, coming up into boost, depending on where you're at. And my issue here is, why not have more timing in there, when you first start out? So that was the first thing I adjusted with Mike's truck. Is I made a couple different fuel or timing maps, kind of played around with some stuff, figured out what it liked, looked at how the torque line on the dyno responded to what I was doing. This is where you can look at a torque line and see, is it a smooth coming into torque? Is there any kind of blips in it? All that kind of stuff. I normally, with a situation like this, will go in and turn any of the smoothing off on the dyno to make sure that if there is a little of a miss or hunt or whatever you want to call it, that isn't really resonating maybe as much in what I'm doing the pull, but more in the data acquisition. I can see that in the line graph. So to give you a difference here, you're going to see a big change over here. So I went from, like, let's just pick a point right there. We're at 22 degrees now, where we were at 16. There's probably even more to be put into this, but basically, now, and you can look at just the whole map in general. I just really changed around here, but basically what you're doing is, you get in a throttle, you come up through this area here, and, you're looking at about this area is where it goes into full boost. I pull the timing out a little bit there because, we're getting to MBT, and then we'll come back around and add some in on the end as it comes up through, to kind of give you an idea on how that map runs out through. We will switch over to the actual last dyno pull I did. Don't pay attention to these knock lines. I'll explain them in a minute here. But basically, we'll look at 3,500 RPMs. We're full throttle. We are looking at a cylinder air mass of 79 grams. And we're at 23 degrees of timing. So here's where we sit on that table. So we're looking at right here, basically. We're coming up through this area. Substantially more timing from where we were at. We're at 17 before, we're at 24 now. I brought the torque line up substantially in that area because we're only at that point at 20 pounds of boost. We're only looking at 20 pounds of atmospheric pressure, which comes out to like 6 pounds of boost, roughly five. It's like 5.5. That's a big difference with the way that the timing comes in. As we come up through, you can kind of see how the timing line here is it falls down in, where before it was just kind of turned off. It's like you got in the throttle, it went down, it was flat the whole way across. Now you're looking at more of a refined, smooth line. You can actually see it come down and then it comes back up. We're looking at it kind of spread out. If I zoom out a little bit, you can really see how it's more of a progression, whereas, like I said, with this one, it's just basically a straight down and straight back up. So, kind of just give you a little bit of an idea there. But yeah, anyways, so we'll look at another spot here. We'll look at that 5,000 RPM range. We're at 25 atmosphere, 15 degrees of timing, and our air fuel is 12.0. Big thing I wanted to mention here is on the other run, there was the belt slip going on. It would fall back pretty hard. if you watch the boost gauge up here in the top, we stay like right where it needs to be for the most part the whole way through. There's still a little bit of slippage going on, but nothing I'm going to be too concerned about. If you pay attention to the spark right here, you can see, you know, I come in at 5,000. You know, boost comes on, and I actually bring that timing back around to where we're at 18, 17 around the end there. It's kind of dithering a little bit. Not really a big deal, you know, and our fuel is really like right where I'd like to see it for the most part. This little dotted line here is 12.0, and you can see how the fuel line is basically staying right there at that very spot. Where on the other one, you know, you can see we're basically below that the whole time. On something like this, I would like to see it right around that that 12.0. Oh, got the wrong one up here. That 12.0 to 11.8 range. You know, if it, you know, makes about the same power at 11.5, it's not going to hurt it, but you know, I normally like to run things where they belong. You know, something on this level of boost, this level of build is fine at 11.8, 12.0. You know, I could have leaned on it a little harder, taken it up to maybe about 12.2, 12.5 at the most, and probably been okay. Got a little bit more of a burn to it, especially, you know, knowing that it's going to be drag raced. I didn't want to go too crazy with it. So, pretty basic stuff here as far as the runs go. I want to explain these two marks right here as far as the timing goes real quick with the knock. Basically what I did was I went in and on the knock sensor stuff, the original tables were all turned off for the retard. I turned them back on to where they belonged. This table is normally like 0.02. They had it maxed out at 8. I took it down to 2. That's why we're seeing a little bit of a burst knock reading there. But it's not making an adjustment on the scaler itself for the timing. You know, it's actually just kind of coincidental that as I come into timing here, we see a little bit of burst knock, and you know, the timing rolls off, which is kind of neat to see because it tells me, okay, like right as I'm making an adjustment there with the timing is where it's starting to pick up just a little bit. You know, I pulled plugs on this after runs, and you know, the plug read was like perfect on it. Actually, the heat was in the strap kind of low, so it probably would have even taken maybe a little bit more, but at this point there wasn't really much reason to put much more into it. You know, the thing seemed happy and it was making really good power where it was at. Otherwise, that's really about it. You know, I don't want to get too far into it and make this really long, you know, 40-minute or an hour video or anything like that. But feel free to post any questions or comments you guys have, or send me a message, and you know, I can go over a little bit more information for you guys if you think it's worthwhile. But pretty cool build. You know, run for run, we're looking at a difference of, you know, on this run, the first dyno session, it made 665 horsepower. That was without me doing anything to it. I retuned it with the belt slip. It made 704. And then after, when it was running this run here, it made 740 with it running a consistent about 10 pounds. So, you know, I know Mike plans on doing a little bit more with this truck yet. One of the things that there needs to be added into it is like an aftercooler to cool the intercooler down a little bit more. It has one of those big ice boxes on it, but it doesn't really keep the water cool under cruise and stuff like that. So, you know, it would be kind of a cool thing for him to have something in there to keep it cool while he's cruising. Otherwise, you know, this truck's pretty decent build. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to post a little bit more in here with the video. But this is about all I got as far as the HP tuners and VCM scanner wrap-up goes. Alright guys, so here is the dyno run readout from the last part of the video there. I know we're getting real high tech here. As I was saying earlier, kind of looking at our torque numbers, you can see how the chart just kind of comes up and it just keeps building torque as we go up with boost. We build our peak torque at 5100, which is where I was showing you in the dynogram or in the VCM scanner. So we come into full boost. It makes sense that full boost comes on, we got full torque. And then as it progresses out, it falls off as it goes on here. Basically what you want to look at here is I get in a throttle, and we're not having any kind of dithering or falling or anything like that as this thing's going to build up torque, and it actually has a pretty good ramp up as it goes up here. As far as horsepower goes, it's pretty normal for a centrifugal supercharger like this to see it just basically be a ramp up. It builds its power. It looks like about 5,900 to 6 is where we're at our peak, and it falls off in the end. It's a basic dyno chart for what you should see on something like this. Basically what we were looking at before, and unfortunately, just because of the way that Mike's dyno is, I don't have one to show, but our torque line was much lower. It didn't come in as hard, it came in later. It was almost matching the horsepower line with the way that it read before. It looked almost like a big turbo car with the way they come on. So here's just a quick recap of what we're looking at for a dyno chart and what kind of power this thing made.